Godflesh Purge album review. Let's chat about it. Hey friends, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning. Here tonight to chat about this latest album from Godflesh. They are a UK-based industrial band, and they have been at it since the late 80s. They are pioneers of the industrial genre and one of the longest running acts in it. And you know, their early stuff, I mean, what else is there to say that hasn't already been said about like their 1989 debut Street Cleaner? It's an iconic album for a reason. I mean, it's heavy. It's freaking heavy, especially by 1989 standards. And their follow-up, Pure, I swear, I feel like I love this album even a little bit more at times. And Predominance and Monotremata are like two of my favorite Godflesh tracks that the band has ever put out. While a little bit more groove metal oriented, I've always thought that their Songs of Love and Hate album has been one of my favorite releases from the band. And Hymns, as well as their comeback album, A World Only Lit by Fire, while a little bit straightforward and usually maybe a little bit longer than they need to be, I still think are very solid releases from Godflesh. And the last time we heard from them with their Post-Self album, I actually thought this album was underrated and just a really solid modern sound for the band. Now, Godflesh has been around since the late 80s, and honestly, they've released a lot of material, and some of it has not been for me. Like their 1994 album, Selfless. The production on this thing, it is abysmal. I can't get through this album still. I've just never been a fan of it. And Us and Them, I mean, I respect the amount of risks that were taken on this album, especially the electronic and trip-hop influences. I mean, it's cool, but the album is just not for me. Now, this is their first work in a couple of years. I thought the Nero single leading up to this album was really solid. Let's chat about this thing. This album starts off with Nero. Thoughts haven't changed on it. I think it's just a great single overall. It's heavy, man. I mean, if you are not into the sort of groovier side of their music, you may not like this, because this riff certainly has a lot of that. It's got that thick groove, and it's gnarly, it's bulky, it's dark. It really locks in on that groove, and I love it. I mean, this track just bangs on without a care in the world, just pummeling everything through it. Honestly, I love it. And not for nothing, for a band that has been at it since like the mid to late 80s, they sound fucking heavy, man. Then we have Landlord, and man, I hope you like meaty riffs, because this thing is... it is bulky. This track is pummeling all around. It is just dark. Dark, dark, dark. I love the winding guitars and the intense drumming and the suffocating production. This is just great all around. It's gritty, it's grimy. I can even see purists of Godflesh, the fans of their older albums, loving this. I mean, there is that pulsating electronic beat in the background. If that's not your style, I get it, but I really do enjoy it. An Army of None, honestly, this track is one of the murkiest and muddiest and most dangerous sounding tracks here. And yeah, this track definitely has some more nods to the electronic side of Godflesh's music. It's polarizing, I get it. But what I'm here for is just how in your face this is. Just how guttural this track is. It is constantly unraveling, pummeling you at every step. I do think a lot of this album is actually really enjoyable, but man, I gotta tell you, all is not as well as it seems on this album. We get tracks like Lazarus Leper and what happened here? This lumbering bass riff and this boring beat. How did this fall off so fast? Like, if a track like this came out in their prime, I don't know how they would have come back from this. Like, this track is over 6 minutes long. I'm telling you, it feels like 20. I am not kidding you when I say it's one of the worst tracks I've heard all year, and just an experiment that flops. The Father starts off pretty solid with some genuine tension, which I will always enjoy. It's a real shame everything else about this track is freaking limp. This riff sounds recycled, the vocals are really flaky, and once this production kind of fades away, the only saving grace here, everything else about this track is just flaky. And you are the judge, the jury, and the executioner. As a finale, it's not bad, but it's one of the most middle-of-the-road tracks that I've heard all year. I mean, it's certainly the darkest and most dismal thing here, and the pacing on this track. My God, they are not rushing for anybody, and I actually think this track has an unbelievable atmosphere. In an odd twist, it's one of the most meditative and far-out tracks here. It's a really great experiment. Like, on one hand, I'm enamored with how dark and dense and layered it is. And then come the vocals. I don't mind how spacey and dreamy and surreal this track comes off. That's cool. I just wish that this was a little heavier. The vocals were a shift up. Honestly, this to me comes off like a really cool, interesting 3-minute detour. Maybe without vocals, maybe. But this track is almost 9 minutes long. And I can't truly get into it. But it's okay. This is far from the worst thing Godflesh has ever done. Permission is pretty cool. Like, this track genuinely sounds like, I don't know, like a Prodigy hit from like 99, but like amped up on steroids. This beat is so killer and so good that I feel like this could be actually used as an argument for the more electronic leaning side of Godflesh's music. The echoed vocals are really intense. The track is so massive and raw. I wish we got more tracks like this. And Mythology itself, while maybe a little straightforward for my liking personally, it makes up for just how gritty and just disgusting it is. It is easily the darkest track of the bunch. There is such a sense of finality here. If this was this album's finale, I really would have gotten with it. And yeah, it's campy as shit at times, almost to ridiculous levels. But I don't mind that. Every crashing rip is super pummeling. It's a very solid tune. This album is fine. It's Godflesh in 2023. I mean, yeah, they pull out some tracks that are really cool and meditative and intense and dark and gnarly that will please Godflesh fans of any generation. There's also some really sharp left turns that do not go over well. I mean, some of the lengthier tracks, the finale track that's so middle of the freaking road. Father as well, which is just, God, not very good. Lazarus Leper, which is easily one of the worst tracks I've heard in any genre all year. It's fine. It's fine. It's a middle-of-the-road Godflesh album. Trust me, there's a lot better. There's a lot worse. It's not the biggest sin committed by the band. It's fine. I'm feeling a decent 6 on this album. But let me know what you all think down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a great day, friends.